All right, welcome everybody. My name is Kyle Magatelli. I am the social media and webinar coordinator for the Student Doctor Network, and we're very happy today to have Dr. Rachel Perez, DMD, to talk to us about dentistry. Dr. Perez, thank you for joining us.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
Cool. So, going to give everyone a couple of minutes, and before we get going, I wanted to run down some of the resources that the Student Doctor Network has and what we're all about. So SDN is a nonprofit focused on bringing free and low-cost resources to students. We believe everybody should have the same opportunity to go to health professional school. Visit studentdoctor.net. Up at the top, you're going to be able to click go to the resources page. You're going to be way better off going through it on your own than me trying to talk about it. So I would recommend starting there. We are most well known for our forums. There is like hundreds of thousands of people on there. I always completely misrepresent it. But we have forums for just about every health community. Again, hop on there. Great place to start. Confidential expert advice is an area within our forums where if you have a question and you want a very direct answer, this is a great place to go. We have adcoms, attendings, there's a bunch of vetted professionals who will be able to tell you exactly what you need to know. I've used this a good bit myself, and I might not always like the answer, but I've gotten told exactly what I need to hear every single time. I highly recommend that area of our forums if you're a student with questions. How-to admissions guides. We have one lower left corner. I probably should have blown that up, but that's dental. It's going to have everything you need to know from pre-health day one to dropping your applications. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ the C shouldn't be there. I should also have gotten that. It's just Student Doctor Network. We have a wide variety of Ask Me Anything webinars, webinars about various admissions tests to include the DAT. Hop on there, see what we've got. Interview feedback and school reviews. This is a fun one. studentdoctor.net/schools. People who have gone and interviewed at health professional programs like medical schools, dental schools, go on there. Find the school that you're applying to or that you're going to be interviewing at, and people that interviewed there tell you the questions that they got asked. They tell you what their experience was. There are some seriously left field questions that you could get asked, so please go and look at that ahead of time. It's a great resource. DDS applicants, this right here, dds.studentdoctor.net, you're going to see how you stack up against previous applicants. It's put in your GPA, put in your DAT score, and you're going to see, hey, here's how I rack and stack compared to other people at program X, Y, and Z. Just a really great way to get your head around, like, all right, how competitive am I? Essay Workshop 101, just what it says. If your personal statement's terrible, it's not going to do you any good. So this is a great place to work on your writing skills and make sure that everything's up to snuff. Review2.com. This is testing site reviews. Like, again, please go on there and find out what you're walking into. Maybe there's something goofy like, hey, you have to pay in cash for the parking, or like, oh, they keep it at 50 degrees the whole time. Go on there, find out ahead of time. Again, you don't want any unpleasant surprises. And finally, we're on all the major socials. Check us out there, see what we're doing. That's more than enough out of me. So, Dr. Perez, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, so I am a general dentist. I practice in Miami, Florida. It's a lot of fun, very warm down here, except this weekend. It's 30 degrees or 40 degrees, but I'm sure some of your audience are used to that. I've been practicing for about 2.5 years now. I graduated from Nova, and I'm an open book. I took the non-traditional route to dentistry. I actually applied a little later. I was 26 when I applied, 26. Yeah, because I started when I was 28. So, after you apply, there's usually about a 9-month to 12-month period after the acceptance and all of that. So I'm happy to tell you all about my application experience, as well as, what being a general dentist looks like for me, because I have a very different experience from some other generals. Yeah.
Cool. That's 30 or 40 Celsius or Fahrenheit? You know, it's
No,
Miami. So how did that?
Fahrenheit.
I don't care.
Fahrenheit. So for me, 30 is very, very cold.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound realistic for Florida, but
It
anyway,
doesn't, but it's been a weird week.
I will take your word. All right. So first question, how and when did you decide to become a dentist?
So I was about 25. My dad had been telling me since I was 12, Rachel, you like the good life and you don't like to work. Go be a dentist. Oh man, was he wrong. I do like the good life, but man, do I work hard. um, so when I was 25, I went on a mission trip. I work with a nonprofit organization called Prince of Hope International. And we went to Kenya that year. There was one dentist on the team, and I worked with her, and I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was non-traditional because I was actually about to go to law school when I decided, hey, I'm gonna change my entire life and be a dentist. So yeah, it was about 2013, and that was the how, and I guess that was the when. So yeah.
Cool. Oh, that's good. You dodged the lawyer bullet in that case.
Right? I am so thankful for that one.
And everybody watching, please send your questions in so Dr. Perez can answer those for you. All right, next question. How did you decide upon the dental school you went to?
So I applied anywhere in the East Coast, Southeast specifically, as far north as Virginia and as far west as Texas. I really wanted to avoid cold weather. I'm from Miami, come on. So when it came time for my applications, I think it ended up being a total of 12 schools. And I interviewed at 6, including all 3 Florida schools, Georgia, Alabama. I think that's about it. No, wait, there was one more. It left me. But anyways, so I interviewed at about 5 or 6 schools, and from there, it was the waiting game of where did I get accepted. I got into 2 in Florida, one in the Tampa Bay area called LECOM. I got into Nova, and then I was waitlisted at Alabama. I'll be honest, my first choice was Alabama. But when I was waitlisted there, I chose to go with the one closest to home, which was Nova.
Cool. Next question. What surprised you most about your studies?
So I've always been smart. I never really needed to study much. And then dental school hit. And I said, oh, now I understand what studying is. So I knew it was going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't realize how hard. And I think the reason it was very difficult for me was because, you know, if you don't have good study habits from the beginning, it's difficult to start establishing them once you're in the middle of it, in the midst of it, you know. But you figure it out really fast. You start working with your classmates. I think something that surprised me in a good way was just how the camaraderie, how everyone works together. You know, when someone makes a study guide, they share it with the class. Hey, guys, like use this, you know, this test is going to be tough and things like that. So in a positive way, the camaraderie, in a negative way, just how it's so much harder than I imagined, you know.
Okay, right. Yeah, study. I had to like relearn how to. I never knew how to study. I had to learn like when I went back to college, as opposed
exactly.
to. So anybody who's not studying currently, please learn how now.
Learn how now. Don't wait. Don't wait until your first semester. You will regret it.
For sure. So, have a question from Maria Cardenas. What was your favorite class in dental school?
Oof. Okay, this one's a toughie because I had a few of them. So obviously, I loved the one where you learn actual dental things. You know, you're learning how to drill and all of that. So that's definitely one of my favorite aspects. But I loved the oral medicine aspect as well. So I loved learning about pathologies, oral cancer, leukoplakia, just the different things that can occur in the mouth, and how there's different systemic conditions that you can actually also see within the mouth. So there's, you know, for example, I'm going to use cancer as an example. Leukemia, you know, chances are, not chances are, if you're in late stage leukemia, the way that it affects the mouth is your gums are very white and you don't have a lot of blood flow to the area. So there are people, I've never seen this in practice. I want to make that very clear. But there are people who don't know that they have this disease and they go to the dentist and that's where they're first diagnosed. So I loved learning how the mouth was fully connected to the body, because sometimes I think dentists are viewed as, oh yeah, they just know the mouth, but we really are specialists from here to here. And it's such an important aspect of the body. You know, without the mouth, you can't eat. You know, it's not just the function of it, but it's also the aesthetic aspect, you know. So I really enjoyed that class.
So here's a fun one from Laura Turner. Dental school is known for being very expensive. Are student loans a challenge? What are your recommendations for managing student debt?
So I am probably not the one you want to ask this about. And the reason why is because although it's very expensive and I do have a ton of debt, I'm $437,000 in debt. I have zero shame telling you that. That is my dental school loans, and I don't regret it for a minute. But I graduated in the midst of COVID, so my loans have been frozen for a while. I am accumulating 0% interest, and in all honesty, I haven't been making any payments because I haven't needed to. The best advice, I guess, for me would be make a lot of money and save a lot of money. You know, I know that it's very easy. Oh, I'm a doctor. I'm making 120, 150 more immediately after graduating. But if you have this amount of debt, although you're making 150 plus $1,000, don't live like you're making that much money, you know? And that's, it's hard, you know, but when the time comes to make that $5,000 a month payment, you're going to be hurting, you know? That's my opinion, but
Yeah,
so,
make
yeah.
a lot, save a lot is just good. And yeah, kids, start saving now,
Yeah.
please. Much like study habits, you don't want to have to develop saving habits when you're older.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not graduate during a pandemic. That's not the part you would recommend?
Definitely not. If I tell you how much money I made my first year, I mean, it's embarrassing. I did a very different route than a lot of my classmates. A lot of people like to go into corporate dentistry. A lot of my classmates actually went to specialty programs, whether that be ortho, endo. I actually don't know if anyone went into perio, but several did GPRs, AEGDs. So they did continue their education. With corporate dentistry, if I recall correctly, you have a guaranteed salary and then you can make more based off of bonuses and how much you make, um, you know, for the month. So if you, let's say, hit your production goals, you'll get a certain amount back, or bonus, I should say. I went the private practice route. So I worked with single offices or group practices, where I've had to build patient pools and I'm basically establishing myself as a solo practitioner to hopefully own my own practice by the end of the year, God willing. So it's different. You know, you take a bigger hit in the beginning, but long term, you're going to be where you want to be. But yeah, that's The learning curve is steep on this one.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So, got another question from Emily Escobar. What are some factors students should consider when looking into dental schools?
Okay. Couple of things. First one, definitely the location. Where do you want to be? I know it sounds silly, but if you know for a fact you can't live in the frigid tundra, don't apply to the University of Minnesota. You're going to be unhappy, and school is hard enough as it is. Cost, of course. If you have all the money in the world, go wherever you want. But if you do have to take out loans for it, you want to go to the best, most affordable school. The third factor I would look into is schools that have specialties versus schools that don't have specialties. There's different opinions here. I went to a school that had all 9 specialties, which is great because you get to meet the people who are going to specialize. You get to start networking a little bit, and you also get to see some really cool procedures. But the key word there is you get to see them. When you go to a school that doesn't have the specialties, sometimes you get to do the really cool procedures. So, for example, implant placement. I didn't do any implant placement in dental school. I know there are some schools that don't have specialists where the general dentists, the pre-docs, are learning how to place implants. How many are there? Can I tell you which school that is? I can't, but that's something to look into if you are interested in pursuing that. Now, one of the advantages to having the specialties in your school is if you are interested in going into a specific specialty, you can go shadow them constantly. You can do an honors program where they let you do those procedures during your 4th year. And you also have the advantage of, if they have externships, you can actually go and be there for a week shadowing the residents and potentially even doing some of those procedures yourself.
Interesting. Guys, thank you for the questions. Keep them coming, please. And speaking of residency, something I was wondering, did you complete a residency after graduation?
So I didn't. Like I said, decided to go straight into the workforce. So I started working in a small practice here in Miami, and then I joined a second practice in the Hollandale Beach area. And I'm happy with it. I'm always bouncing around, but I enjoy it. I'm always meeting different types of people. One of my practices is actually a pediatric office. So I get a lot of exposure to that patient population, which at first I thought, oh, you know what, if I go back to school, I want to be a pediatric dentist. And now after working in it, I'm very happy I did not go back to become a pediatric dentist. It's beautiful. It's great. I don't want to speak ill, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, knowing what's not for you is pretty important too.
Very important.
Right on. So here's a question I had. What's the difference between a DDS and a DMD? I have no idea what's going on here.
So there's actually no difference. It's the same exact degree. DDS stands for Doctor of Dental Surgery. DMD is Doctor of Dental Medicine, but in Latin. If I remember the story correctly, and don't completely quote me on this, when Harvard added their dental school, they didn't like that the degree was in English, DDS. So they decided to make the degree in Latin. And that is where you get DMD from.
If that story is true, that's just absolutely.
And like I said, don't quote me on that, but that's like the story that goes around.
Wow. Okay. No, that sounds very plausible. So another question from Emily. Would you recommend students go through residency after they finish dental school?
That depends a lot on you as a student. I didn't feel the need to complete a residency. I felt very prepared with my education at Nova. I do a lot of continuing education myself. So I did take an implant course. I've taken Botox courses, I'm actually going to be taking an occlusion course now in the summer that they're offering. So your education is what you put into it. You know, if you are the type that you're always striving to learn more, then maybe you don't need the residency. But then again, you may enjoy it. So a lot of it is what you want to get out of your profession and what your goals are.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah.
So another question from Laura Turner. Since you are targeting a solo practice, how much business management did you learn in dental school? Is that covered or do you have to learn that on your own? Yeah.
None, absolutely none. Absolutely none. So I've done a lot of, I work at a lot of offices. There was a point at the end of last year where I was working at 5 different offices. And, you know, the beauty of being at so many offices is that you see what you like and you see what you don't. And you also learn what good practice management is versus not so great practice management. So it's a learn on the job, learn on the field, or, you know, read as many books about it as you can. I actually just bought a book now, How to Buy a Dental Practice. So, yeah.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of great resources. I mean, even podcasts that you can access. So it's great.
So you don't have to go get an MBA for this.
No, I
That's
would not recommend spending another $100,000 on another 3 letters just to own a practice. Please, no. Be really, really good at dentistry. The business will come.
right on. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So what's a typical day like for you?
That's a toughie. So each day is different. Like I said, I work at a few different practices. So right now I'm at 4 practices. So I'm just going to give you a rundown of kind of what they look like. My Monday office is an HMO, Medicaid, Medicare office. On average, I'll see anywhere from 8 to 35 patients. So it sounds like a really big range, but it all depends on who goes in and who has an emergency or who needs the treatment. I do a lot of crowns and bridges in that office, also a lot of dentures. Believe it or not, that office is probably one of my best implant offices as well, because the people who are missing a lot of teeth end up saying, okay, you know what? I know my insurance won't cover this, but I'd rather spend the money and just do the implant, because long term it's gonna be a better decision for me. So that is a really fun practice and also a very stressful practice, just because sometimes you're completely burned out by the end of the day. My Wednesday office is my longest commute, but it's a completely fee-for-service practice. So it's really nice because the clientele there is much more high-end. It's in Naples. I don't even know how to explain it. You know, that day I can do cleanings, I can do crowns, bridges, fillings, exams. You're constantly doing exams. Yeah. And then my Thursday and Friday office are kind of a combination of the first 2. So a lot of extractions at my Friday office, because that one does have a pediatric component to it. So although I mostly see adults at that office, I see a lot of kids. So I take out baby teeth. I take out adult teeth, ortho extractions. I do some wisdom tooth extractions, things like that. So it's fun.
Cool. So one more time, Brian P was wondering where you went to dental school.
I went to Nova Southeastern.
Right on. And another one from Maria Cardenas. Coming back to the acceptance process, how was your interview experience with all the schools you applied for?
So like I said, I had 5 or 6 interviews. My interview at Nova was great. Honestly, it was so chill. I I walked out of that interview. I called my dad. I told him, "Oh my gosh, this just happened." And he said, "Oh, you're in." I said, "Yeah, I'm in." um, I sang at my interview.
Hmm.
I studied musical theater. So I was talking to my interviewer about it, and he said, "Oh, do you want to sing for me?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And I sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So Nova's was a very easygoing, it was just a great environment. I really, really liked that interview process. Lee Com, which was the school in the Tampa area, also great um, environment. Theirs is more of a group style interview. So the way they do it is there's like, I don't know, 10 of you at a time, and you all have to answer the questions kind of. And what's tricky about it is because you don't want to be the person who talks too much, but then you also don't want to be the person who doesn't talk at all. But their focus as a school, they do the problem-based learning, which I really liked at the time. And so they kind of tried to give you that feel during their interview process, which I thought was really cool. The next Florida school, so UF, that was probably my worst interview. And I'm an alum, so that for me was tough. It was just, they have a reputation. I'll put it that way. It was not I left that one crying, and I actually, as I left, told them, "Thank you so much for the opportunity, but I no longer want to be a gator dentist." Like I needed to get out of there because I thought to myself, if this is how they treat me during an interview, what's it going to be like as a student? I just don't, this is when you're supposed to be impressing me, is how I felt. Um, then Georgia's was, I mean, it was simple. You do 2 interviews, you do one and then you do another one. And the way I saw it was one was good cop, one was bad cop. The school itself was magnificent. It was so beautiful, the facilities. I actually really liked the Georgia school. But it just, I nothing really stood out. If that makes sense. The facilities are gorgeous. The students were very nice because you always meet students. And then in Alabama, also great experience. The students were very nice. The interview process was, I believe, 3 or 4 on one, and they have different specialties come speak to you. So they have a general dentist, they have the director of admissions. I had a pediatric dentist, and there was another specialty there. And it was just cool because the way they talk to you is, they want to know, hey, how interested are you actually in this profession? So like the pediatric dentist asked me, oh, you shadowed a pediatric dentist. What did you learn? They asked me about certain procedures, but not necessarily how to describe them. Just, did you understand why they did that? And I thought that was cool. So, yeah.
Cool. So, just another question I have: like, what kind of clinicals do you need to do as like a pre-dental student, or like, what do you need from that area?
So in terms of like clinic time, you have your first year, you're really not in the clinic at all. Oh, you're fine. Oh my goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, a little bit of a brain fart. Your first year, you're not in the clinic at all. Your first year, you're in the sim lab and you're doing simulations. So you are using plastic teeth, you're using your drill, you're learning how to manage, this future reality, but it's completely different. it it's completely different from the human mouth because it's plastic. It's a different material. It's not the enamel. Enamel is very strong. Plastic is very weak. The teeth have gotten better since I've graduated, but I know it's changed. I know that's what I remember. Then in terms of clinical time, I started seeing patients my second year, and my patients were my classmates because you're learning how to do cleanings on each other.
Hmm.
So at the beginning of first year or second year, I'm sorry, you start doing cleanings on each other. And then about second semester, they're like, okay, maybe we can let you see real patients now. And then from there, third year, you're officially in clinic. Maybe not the full 8 hours a day. I would say you have Wednesdays are all class. You're in class all day Wednesdays. And then 9 to 5, you're in the clinic Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So you're doing a good 30 hours in the clinic for the next 2 years.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for indulging my curiosity on that. Thank you for the questions, guys. Keep them coming. Next one. What do you like the most about your work, and what do you like the least?
It's a double-edged sword because it's the same answer. The people. I love, love, love my patients. I think they're incredible. I love revamping someone's smile. I love helping someone eat again. I love taking someone out of pain. I love learning about my patients' lives and, oh, I'm having a baby and, oh, this and, oh, I just got a promotion at work. I love the interpersonal and I love that. But I also hate the patients, I mean, that's probably the wrong word, but it's a lot of work, sometimes you're dealing with people who are not in the best moods. I always joke around. The first thing my patients tell me, first thing a new patient tells me is, I hate the dentist. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Thanks. And then I usually tell them, well, I hope I change your mind about the dentist by the end of this visit. And then sometimes you have people who start off nice and then all of a sudden they just like flip out because their anxiety gets to them or they're just nervous or they're in pain. Dealing with people is always the hardest part of any profession. But being an extrovert and someone who's very social, like that is, I would say I love it more than I hate it most days, but it's definitely the hardest part. In terms of work, fillings are so boring. I mean, it's so redundant. It's the bread and butter of dentistry. You do it all day, every day. But man, fillings are not my favorite. Extractions are fantastic. It's so cool to take a tooth out of bone. So in terms of work, that's my favorite and my least favorite.
Okay. So Laura's wondering, how do you manage when people are afraid? That's a good question.
Different ways. I have some patients that they come in for the exam and they're perfectly fine. And they tell me right from the beginning, hey, I really don't do well when I need work. So nitrous oxide, which is the gas, the laughing gas, is a great, great, great tool that I love using when I have someone who's anxious like that. We can also use oral sedation. So something like a Valium, give them a prescription. They come, they don't drive to their appointment. They have someone pick them up and drop them off. And that usually takes the edge off. That's probably the main ones that are in terms of like medications. The other one is just talking to the patient. I like to be very explanatory. But then there's some patients that they don't want to know anything. They actually prefer, hey, no, don't tell me anything. It makes me more nervous. I find that's the minority. Most of my patients tell me, hey, look, can you explain to me what's happening? Because I think it's the unknown. You know, you have someone in a very intimate space. People have to trust you. And I think building a rapport with your patients, building a relationship, talking to them about something other than the dentistry, you know, talking to them about, hey, you know, talk to me about your family, your work life, you know, what do you like to do? You know, you put people at ease, and that naturally sways the fear.
Makes sense. Cool. So how many hours do you work a week?
I work 4 days. I would love to tell you it's 9 to 5, but that's not how dentistry is. Sometimes I generally always start at 9. Sometimes I leave at 5, sometimes I leave at 7. So actually today, knowing I had this at 7, I said, okay, I need to make sure my schedule is cut out. My last patient's at 3:30, because God forbid if things run late, I want to know that I have enough wiggle room. You know, I like to say we're not working on mannequins. We're working on human beings. And sometimes what you expect to go one way takes another turn. I would say on average, I'm out of the office between 5 and 5:30, but are there days I've worked till 9 p.m.? Yeah. Yeah. I actually worked on Christmas Eve this year because I had a patient call me, hey, I'm in pain. And I said, all right, well, I'm not cooking for Christmas night, so you're lucky I'll see you, you know?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. So for pre-dental students, what advice do you have for the students that you mentor or anyone interested in pursuing dentistry?
So it's part of the question, but get a mentor. I think that's one of the biggest things you can do. Get a mentor, shadow them. Make sure that you actually want to do dentistry. You know, it's a strange thing, loving teeth and loving blood, you know. And you will find that every dentist loves what they do, and we love talking to you about it. So get a mentor is probably the first one. Shadow, and you know, learn as much about it as you can, you know. And that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, go buy a dental textbook. No, but you know, if you see something on the internet that you find interesting, like bring it up to someone who would know, you know, bring it up to that mentor and say, hey, you know, i I really like this, you know, or I found this, can you explain this to me? You know, I always like to give the example of meth mouth. I remember seeing a picture of it when I was, I don't know, 25, 26, right when I had just decided, hey, I want to be a dentist. And I was like, what is this? This is incredible. And I do encourage you to go and Google this now. And it's just meth mouth is, hey, you do enough crystal meth, your mouth dries out, you know, and you get cavities everywhere. And there's different ways to treat it afterwards, but I made sure that I had resources and people that I could talk to about it. I talked about a mentor. Get a job as an assistant. Like, I like to tell people all the time, you know, I think it's really great that people have the time and the ability to go to school 4 years for their bachelor's and then go straight back to school for another 4 years. But take a year off. Go work. Make yourself the best candidate possible. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? I need to take a break from school, because you can and you may get burned out, and that's okay, you know, but try to avoid getting burned out during dental school. Yeah.
That sounds very reasonable. So another question I had, you said you studied musical theater. Like, what is your undergraduate background in? You said you're a non-traditional
So my undergraduate back, I did a BA of Fine Arts in theater with a minor in French. Yeah. Like I said, I was going to be an attorney. And before I was going to be an attorney, I had this dream of working on Broadway, because who doesn't want to be, Broadway star? And I still love it. I think it's one of the best things ever, but it wasn't the world for me. So yeah, my background is that.
So did you knock out your prerequisites like as a post-bac program, or?
So correct. Yeah. So I did it as a post-bac. I did take a couple science classes, from my bachelor's, because obviously you need to take a few. But I think I took like astronomy. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me take geology, I think the math I took was statistics. And then when it came time that I decided, hey, I'm going to be a dentist, I applied to the local community college just because I was too late to go to the university. Like too late in my application cycle, I should say, for my post-bac. And I said, I haven't taken a chemistry class since I was 15 years old. I should probably refresh on this. So I took I took a remedial chemistry class, and it was the best thing I could have done, because I got this understanding of chemistry that I never would have gotten had I just jumped into Chem 1045. By the time I got to Chem 1045, I was so prepared that I said, oh, okay, this is a piece of cake. The class that everyone dreads is orgo. I loved orgo. I would sing praises about how, oh my gosh, this is my favorite class. And it's not to say that it wasn't difficult. It was, but I just really enjoyed it because I had a different outlook on it as well,
Yeah, I loved organic chemistry, but I'm also pretty sure I was going crazy that year, because it is like,
100. Yeah. It's hard. It's a tough class.
Yeah.
It's a different way of thinking. It's completely spatial, and you're just like, what is this? But it's a cool class,
Yeah.
I actually do want to say one last thing. Something that I learned pursuing my post-bac and then pursuing dentistry is, we can look at life two ways. And one of them is with this outlook of, hey, wow, I'm the luckiest person. I can't believe I get to study this, and we can look at it that way, or we can look at it as, oh, I hate this class, oh my gosh, this class is so hard. And at least for me, I noticed that the classes that I was most excited about, even if they were hard, the classes I was most excited about, I ended up doing better in, just because I had a more positive outlook on it, and that kind of goes back to the what advice for the pre-dental students. But I think that's a big one, just, it's going to be hard, but it's not impossible, just keep on trucking,
For sure. So we're coming up on time here. The last question: has being a dentist met your expectations?
It has. I like the work, I like what I do. Graduating amidst a pandemic was probably not what I wanted. And I go back to, just the joke I made earlier of, hey, if you would have seen my paychecks my first year, you would laugh. I cried. But in all other aspects, yes, it has completely met my expectations. It's also surprised me. I thought I loved it, and I think I love it more now than I did even when I started. So, yeah, it's a good profession. I if it's something you're considering, I love to tell people, hey, come if you're in the Miami area or whatever, whatever questions people have, I always like to tell them, hey, I'm an open book. Let me know. I like to be as honest and as real about this profession as I can. So, yeah.
Right on. Well, Dr. Perez, thank you for answering our questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you to everybody for the questions that you asked. Really appreciate getting to learn a bit about what you do here today.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a
For
great
sure.
evening.
All right. Thanks. All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.